All right, it's 8:30. Let's call the morning's meeting to order. Looking for an approval of the agenda.
Move to approve.
We have a motion by Commissioner Whalen to approve, a second by Commissioner Haney. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Citizens to be heard. Is anyone here wishing to speak on anything that is not posted on the agenda? Seeing no one, moving into the approval of payment of bills and vouchers.
Move approval.
Motion by Commissioner Campbell and a second by Commissioner Haney. And further discussion. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Item number 2 is Lisa Bodie from the City of Moorhead, request to extend the Moorhead Property Tax Exemption Program through 2020. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
I see that you have 2 other approvals from the city and from the school district as well.
The school board and the City of Moorhead both passed participation in an extension of the Make Moorhead Home Property Tax rebate at their meetings last evening.
Okay.
And I prepared some information for you just with some history of the program and a little bit of a competitiveness factor that we think drives it.
Yeah.
It does help our residents with affordability, but it's also a competitive issue. North Dakota jurisdictions that are our competition for new housing starts offer the program, and they have since the 1980s. And we hadn't entered into that arena with residential homes until after the 2009 flood, when our housing starts, it was recognized that our housing starts were significantly less than the recovery in the North Dakota jurisdictions, and so we added that exemption. Actually, the state of Minnesota offered it to us at no cost for the first 2 years. They funded the program as a market recovery activity, and we decided that we would still like more robust housing starts and the ability to expand our property tax base on the residential side and add to our population. And so we have continued the program, but we've made it so that it expires every 2 years so that we can ensure that our partners are on board.
Great. Discussion?
Well, I think it's a worthwhile program to keep it going. I mean, it's been-
Absolutely.
So I'll make a motion. Need a motion to approve it, or?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll second the motion.
We have a motion by Commissioner Gross to approve the extension and a second by Commissioner Campbell. Further discussion? I think the data speaks for itself, definitely, that it's something that's an incentive that definitely spurs the growth, and the more growth we can have in Clay County, City of Moorhead's included in that, the better for all of us, really. So, any further discussion? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Appreciation.
Yes.
I have a question.
Campbell.
Maybe not necessarily for you, Lisa, but for Stephen, and maybe to check with Lori, but is this the time where we're up for our 2-year, same thing to approve for the countywide? I think we need to make sure that we don't let that lapse.
It
Is
is.
Yes, so we'll be sending a letter to all the jurisdictions.
But we also then have to take formal action
Advertise.
yes, but then to actually extend it. Yeah, okay, I just don't want that to lapse, I guess, thank you.
It's an important point. Thank you, Sharon. Anything else? Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you all.
See you later.
Our item number 3 is a request to repurchase tax forfeit property. Nancy and Gilberto. Good morning.
Hi.
Hi.
Happy Election Day.
Yes.
As you can see by the information that was in your packet, the property forfeited to the state for non-payment of taxes. Mr. Cervantes' son, Ms. Cervantes' son, is asking to let her repurchase the property. His father was taking care of the repayment and then ended up going to prison, and he did not realize, he paid the taxes,
Yep.
but didn't know that there was that confession of judgment to pay, so that lapsed.
Yep.
So he's asking that you allow him to repurchase it, and he's going to do it in 2 separate payments, because that's what he can, will
Afford
work for
right
him.
now.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we do have your letter included, and I believe that your situation definitely falls in the reasoning to allow something like this. I think it's obviously in the best interest of your family to keep it in the ownership. So as long as you're prepared to do the payment plan that is agreed upon, the one on August 17th, and then one on September 17th, correct? The board's wishes.
I'll move to approve.
We have a motion by Commissioner Whalen to approve,
Second.
and a second by Commissioner Gross.
Yeah,
Commissioner
I just
Campbell.
want to comment, I think part of our requirement is to find that it's for the good of the county, and certainly having it taxed back on the tax rolls is good for the county. So I just want to make sure that
Yes.
that's the reason for my supporting of it too, is that it's in the best interest of the county, so.
All right. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Item number 4 is Georgia Beaudry, a request authorization to sell a 2005 Jeep Cherokee with fleet number 12. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm requesting authorization to replace our fleet vehicle number 12, which is used by the assessor's office. It's a 2005 Jeep Cherokee with 128,000 miles on it. We originally got that one from the sheriff's department, or excuse me, the highway department as one of their used vehicles. We now were fortunate enough to get a backup vehicle from the sheriff's department to replace that vehicle, a 2013 Ford Explorer. So we're going to dispose of the original one from the highway department, the Jeep Cherokee. The estimated replacement or trade-in, I guess it's not a trade-in, we would sell it through Enterprise, is between $1,500 and $2,500 is what they're recommending.
Okay, comments?
Move to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Gross to approve,
Second.
and a second by Commissioner Haney. Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Thank
Motion
you.
passes. Thank you, Georgia. We are a little ahead of schedule today. Can we go into some committee reports? Commissioner Campbell?
Yes, I have to go back to prior meetings, and I was at the Solid Waste Advisory Committee back on July 26th. The reason I'm reporting on that, of course, is because we did have a meeting, or we did have a week with no meetings at all.
Yep.
And at that meeting, I'm sure maybe Commissioner Wayland has also already reported on it, but we did receive a report on the small commercial business waste program that's going on in Moyd right now, and there's 42 of the 46 commercial businesses are participating in that pilot program, which is really good. Everything else seems to be going well at the landfill. Then I attended the flood diversion meeting on the 26th, and they continue to work to support the draft EIS from the Corps and the Minnesota DNR. That was pretty much the extent of that report. And that is all I have.
Okay. Commissioner Haney?
Yes, thank you. On Tuesday, I attended the kickoff cook-off at the Dilworth Community Center with the law enforcement chiefs, and then in the evening attended one of the Night to Unite events, and that's all I had last week.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Gross?
Okay, Tuesday, we had the highway tracking meeting. They were still trying to put an there's $4 million worth of some funds available. We're going to apply for that for CASA 9 and CASA 10 and try and get some money for that. Had a lot of the discussion on the Becker County gravel that's going through the county. You know, can we charge for gravel going through the county and stuff like that? And pretty much found out can't do it, you know. But there's just concern that there's a lot of truck traffic going through Clay County and the hauling gravel. Another thing, we're looking at the concrete driveway out at landfill. They got to put in a concrete driveway, and they're trying to share costs between the highway department and solid waste, and trying to find out whether we should be involved in that or not. Other things, talked about dust control, and we talked about the Linden project, which is going to be happening, taking bids probably later this year, open bids probably somewhere around January. So hopefully that whole project could be done by next year. That was the highway department, the wild rice. I also attended the night out thing. I went to a couple of them at Dilworth and at Hawley. Also, I went to the Wild Rice Watershed Board meeting, which is routine discussions on different projects and on their permits. That was it. Oh, I also had got a okay from Partnership for Health. They did an audit on them, and Rebecca Otto, the auditor of it. Did we get that copy here too? Of the completion that they approved the audit, that we got a very good audit report from the Partnership for Health?
No, we haven't seen that.
Okay, I got that on my emails. I'll probably, if someone shows me how to forward it, I'll forward it. Or you can just have my phone. It's on there. That's it.
Grant?
I had also went to the Night Unite event in Dilworth. I had to be on the Yellow Ribbon meeting and just had updates on, some projects they're working on there, and an update from the County Veteran Service Officer, and I had a Diversion Authority meeting, special meeting with Senator Hoven from North Dakota and Governor Burgum from North Dakota, and both gave updates on what's going on in Washington, and Governor Burgum on the issue with the permit and the DNR in Minnesota, and both positive reports from Senator Hoven and from Governor Burgum, and there's still a lot of things to get done with the to get the permit issued for Minnesota, but I think they're working pretty hard on getting it done before Governor Dayton leaves office. So that was it for me.
I also attended the 19-night kickoff and an event that day. That's really a great community-wide celebration, county-wide. I think there's a lot of parties happening, and I really appreciate the input of everyone that's done that. I attended the Soil and Water Conservation District meeting last week. We had some conversations on a number of issues, including the pollinator habitat project that's continues to move forward. One issue that's come to light is, Frank brought up gravel trucks, but North Dakota is beginning to require on some projects that this gravel is being certified weed-free. And the challenge that has for gravel that's coming from Clay County and Minnesota pits is that North Dakota has a different list of invasive species weeds, and so anything that would be certified maybe weed-free by our standards isn't really known by their standards, and it's becoming kind of problematic. And so the other issue is how really you can go into a gravel pit and look that there's no weeds standing, but how do you certify that there's no weeds within the gravel on the shore? I mean, it's almost impossible to really do that. And so there's been questions of us to see if we will be requiring our gravel on our roads to be certified weed-free from our, I mean, it's just a question that the Soil and Water is bringing up. And from my standpoint, I really don't know how you would regulate that. I think, you have existing relationships with contractors and know where those pits are. And I don't know how you can regulate if it's certified weed-free or not.
I think we've been putting gravel on our roads for a very, very long time, and hasn't really been an issue.
Right.
So,
And
but
my-
I think it's fine that they're bringing it up.
Yeah.
But
And it was mainly from complaints from people. My thought was that I don't think the gravel really is the problem where the weeds are coming from. You have people hauling hay or cutting hay
Right.
and hauling it from different states and different areas, and I think that more cross-contamination happens that way. But just wanted you to know that that's that's an issue that they brought up. That does conclude my reports, though. Rhonda, are you waiting on anyone?
No.
Okay, all right, we'll do your budget.
Good morning.
Good morning, Rhonda.
Handout here. Thanks. Okay, budget review for 2019. So the handout I provided you, the first page is really just kind of a high-level summary of levy increase and kind of those factors that may be impacting the request going from 2018 to 2019. So I'll just kind of follow that, and then I do have some attachments with some data that might be helpful. So just starting out at the top there, the 2018 levy for our social service budget is that 9.498 million. The fund balance utilized for 2018 is 366,000. We really planned for just that 200,000, which we've been doing over the last couple of years. We had some late adjustments that I just don't think all of that. So that additional 166,000 is showing as utilizing fund balance, but I don't think we will necessarily use that this year if in fact everything turns out as we hope, with some of those unpredictable revenues and expenditures. But that's how it's reflected in the budget. So the overall total levy requested is the 9,864,427. So the budget that I've submitted for 2019 is 10,223,794. So you'll see that difference there, which represents a 3.64% increase. Over to the right, I've listed a few of those items that really are making that difference in the budget. The first item there, health insurance for $222,539. You actually have dealt with that already. It's just not in the social service budget. So last year when we had that 14% health insurance adjustment, so for social services, 118 employees, that represents a large amount of money. So that amount was just not levied or an expenditure applied in the social service budget. It's just in, is it central?
It's in general revenue.
General
We're going to do
revenue.
something a little different for payable 19. Once we get those numbers, I'm going to spread those across the appropriate departments.
Good.
So then we won't have this increase every year. So we're going to do that for
That's a
19.
great idea.
That's a good deal.
Yeah, yeah, so it really is, you've already dealt with that. It just shows a little wonky in our budget, which
Right.
is so large.
But once we get through this year.
Yeah, yeah. The other three items there, the county-funded burials, we, again, you know, that's an area that we're mandated to provide for individuals that are low income, that pass away in our county, that are our county of financial responsibility. And so we have a county burial plan, and we work with multiple funeral homes on that plan. Our expenses are just trending a little bit higher. In your second page of your packet, you'll see our history of expenditures for county burials. If you look down in 2017, what I have listed there is how many burials we paid for, what was the overall expenditure, how much revenue we were able to recoup. So for example, if there's a bank account or if there's some assets that we can recoup to help offset the cost of the burial, we do that. What was the county's net cost and then the average cost. So that's our history. On the back page of that are the statutes which explain what the county's role is in assuring burials are provided. And then the third.
I have a question on that now. Now, you say you work with several different funeral homes on this?
Correct.
Why don't we just work with one, or what, that gives us the best deal, or
Yeah.
why do we go around and, do
This-
the people still have a choice which funeral home they want?
Yeah, they do. And
Even
it's-
though they're not gonna pay for it?
Right, and it is spelled out in statute about family choice
in terms of funeral homes. However, any funeral home that agrees to take on a county-funded burial has to comply with our rate structure. So, you know,
And they've been
that's.
part of the dialogue. I mean,
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
last 2 years,
Yes.
they've all been at the table with you
Right.
discussing that.
Right,
so.
right. So for example, so far this year, we've used Anderson Funeral Home, Bolger Funeral Home, Corismo, Wright, a variety of funeral homes. But again, they have to comply with our county's fees that we've established.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
So that third page, and we can discuss this further later, but it was back in 15, I think we had some meetings with both Wright and Corismo, just talking about our rates. And so we have made some adjustments. So this county burial payment schedule, you'll notice that in 2018, we did not make any adjustments to the top two costs. Those are just service costs, so those are the amounts that we pay them for providing the services. So I did apply a 2% for 2019, but if you want to look at that differently, we can. One of the things that we did do, if you remember a couple years ago, the concerns with Wright and Corismo was that if there's an unattended death in our county, typically it's brought down to Ramsey County Medical for an autopsy. And then the funeral homes end up contracting, I think it was with Valley Mortuary, for some of the services because of the distance, and they would get like a $900 bill. So we took that bill out and we're paying that directly. So that has made a huge help for the funeral homes where that's become an issue. So I felt applying a 2% was reasonable, but if we want to look at that differently. But the bottom line to the budget is I added $10,000. So if you go back to the first page again, I just added $10,000 into our budget, which doesn't even bring us to what we actually spent in 2017. But, you know, our years can go up and down, and I felt like if we could just slowly adjust that each year to get us maybe where we need to be. So that's the $10,000 increase. The $19,657 increase in the budget is, I have a chunk in the middle there of some of our contracted providers, and you'll see over to the far right the percent that I applied to those contracts. Some of them did not request an increase in funds, some of them did. The largest one there being it's labeled Lutheran Social Services Guardianship. I applied a 7% increase to that contract. And that too is a mandated service that the counties are required to provide for individuals in our county that are vulnerable and need substitute decision makers. And there's no family that's able to do that. So when the court orders that, we contract with Lutheran Social Services. And those numbers are continue to rise. Right now they serve about 75 folks under our contract. And on average, they've indicated that averages out to be about $47.60 per hour based on the number of hours they're providing. And their actual cost is about $56 per hour. So they've asked that we try to adjust that to get them to meet their actual costs. So I applied a 7% this year to kind of get us a little more in the ballpark. So that's that. And then at the bottom is our jail project. So the $110,234 increase from 18 to 19, excuse me, is the full year costs of one full-time equivalent professional and one full-time equivalent practitioner under contract with Lakeland.
My question on that is, where's the grant?
The grant is in there, so if you look at the line items on that last grid at the bottom, so I'll just start with the 10,000. The 10,000, we've always, over probably 8-10 years, have always included in our budget because we had Ron Auden going to the jail, so that revenue stayed. The 30,000 there that I have crossed out for 2018, but it's in for 2019, that is the grant funds we were getting to pay for the crisis intervention training for law enforcement and jail staff. We didn't get that money for 2018 from that grant, but we got it from a different source. We got it from Beak House, so that worked out well. But here's then the third line is the Lakeland Mental Health Center Opportunity Funds. So they gave us 75,000, and we had divided that out over 2 years, so 2018 and 19. So I do have it in there. However, one thing that we could look at is we're starting this in October, so we will have 3 months of expenditures, not the budgeted 6 months. So we're going to have less expenditures in 2018 than planned. So one of the things I talked with Lakeland about is if we could just take that full 75,000 that they are allocating and use that next year. And if we did that, we could reduce that $110,000 request by $37,500. So we just met on Monday, yesterday. We just met as a small group to kind of hash out where we're at in our expenditures. So that is something we could look at, because if you go down to the mental health professional at 64,000 and the mental health practitioner for 2018, that represents 6 months of service, and we're not going to have them start till October. So we could make that adjustment.
And sure. I think, maybe Stephen, maybe you can also note some of these suggestions on things before we get to our preliminary levy, we can re-review all of these different options.
Sure.
And I guess if somebody doesn't track them all, I don't want to see something fall through. So I just a note, I know Brian used to do that for us.
Okay.
So, thank you.
So that is the jail project, and we'll continue. One of the things that I have budgeted here, worst case scenario, meaning that there's no opportunity for billing, and there will be some opportunities for Lakeland to bill.
Mm-hmm.
So what we will do is, as they get going, we will continue to review it. They will track revenue from billing, we'll reconcile that with the contract amount, and so hopefully that amount will look a little different as we go and get some time under our belt for services.
Right. I think the other really important thing as well as board is adamant that we feel like this is a really good thing. The mental health services is important. I know that we wrote for that grant a couple of years before we were actually going to use it. We talked to Lakeland about the opportunity fund, and I don't think that we can continue to draw any more than the 75 that they've already set aside for that. I think that we should be creative and continuing to search for grant dollars that could help to fund this, because I really think this is something that nobody else in the state is doing. I think that we should be able to find some dollars somewhere, and so even if it's a couple of years down the road, that we should be doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think our whole team is continuing to look for opportunities and pockets of funds, and so we'll continue to do that. So overall, those are, otherwise in the budget, we've had some revenues that are looking a little better, some revenues that are looking not so good, so they've kind of evened out in the budget. Staffing has all stayed stable. We've had some turnover, so while I think that some of our salary lines have actually gone down just a little bit, but then some of the increases, make up for that. So overall, there's not a lot of change in the budget. The good news is, and we could go to the out-of-home placement handout, is that our placements are staying stable. So this grid here, if you just look at maybe 2017 actuals, so kind of more toward the right, you'll see that in the yellow line across the bottom there, our total expenditures minus our revenues was $2.387 million. where the previous year it was 2.8, so that had gone down. This year, we are trending to spend, if you look at the 2018 projected, trending to spend about 2.4, and we've budgeted 2.5. So, hope that we, stay within that budget. 2.5 is what I budgeted for 2019, so I didn't make any adjustments to that. The caution with that is that there's always rate adjustments and cost adjustments. So as placement facilities increase their rates, or as the state increases foster care rates, we assume that responsibility. But I felt with the ebb and flowing of placements that we would be okay. So I didn't make any new adjustments.
The reality is, though, we still have 273 kids in placement.
That's right.
And so I think that while, it's with bated breath, and we're kind of seeing what happens with the rest of the budget, I think we still need to look critically at what's the cause of this.
Absolutely.
Let me say 273, do we have 170 in there now?
Well,
or-
actually, see, these numbers are what they're unduplicated kids. So in a given year, we look at all the kids that went in and out of home placement unduplicated. And that's what, for example, for 2017, it was 236. So as of yesterday, we had 110 kids in care yesterday. And some of them might have been at the shelter care for a couple of days. Some of them might be in long-term foster care. Some of them might be in pre-adoptive homes. So we look at that number at the end of the year and we say, okay, how many unduplicated kids did we serve in our home care? And that's what that number is.
Okay. So that number is down, and we used to have 170.
Yep, and on any given day, we were trending around that 177. And like I said, as of yesterday, it was 110. So.
Well, that's good.
So that is good. What we're seeing, though, is the kids that do go into care, we're seeing kids with significant needs, so they're costing us a bit more.
So what is a child in a foster home? Is that a monthly rate, is it a daily rate, or is there?
And it's a daily rate, and there's a computer formula that the workers, when they have a placement, they enter in all of this information, they enter in the needs of the child. It's all dependent on the age of the child as well. And if we're talking like a family foster home, that's what this is called, the MAPC. They enter in all this information and it spits out kind of a rate. And there's a base rate, but then there's some additional funds foster parents can get depending on the needs of the child and depending on what kinds of services we're asking them to do.
So what's the basic rate? A child that's in good, doesn't need any extra, do you know a rate that?
For a family foster home, I'm gonna just say $45 a day.
Very good, okay, thank you.
Hope I'm right. My staff will correct me.
But if I can, I still think that is the far more reasonable way to go. We've talked about when we don't have the available foster care, about what that expense could turn out to be per day, which is considerably more than having that's why we encourage, and still encourage, our anybody who is willing to look at a foster care family, that we need those services.
Yes, absolutely.
And so I think that it's a better alternative and a more affordable alternative.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. The other thing that we are doing is, if the team that reviews all out-of-home placements feels that a higher level of care is needed beyond a family foster home or a therapeutic home, we're trying to pull in West Central Regional Juvenile Center to talk about the child, what are the needs, and if we can do any customizing of services, so that again, we can, even though we're not there with our project, we can start looking at what we need to do for those kids to keep them here in our community.
I was going to ask that question. So obviously, we weren't going to be ready in 2019 with the West Central Regional Facility, but come 2020, when those doors open, there's going to be some additional opportunities through your budget then will shift to better areas.
Right. Yeah, The total amounts won't likely change initially, but we will be budgeting them in a different area because the goal would be that our kids stay here.
Right.
So, yes.
So,
Which will have some savings, with just staff time on the road and all
Mhm.
those things that we've talked about before.
Commissioner Brooks?
since we went from 170 to 110 now, say we got some out-of-county placements, as Clay County has openings and stuff, do we bring them back or at all, or do we keep a kid or a child in the same home?
Yeah. One of the things we're required to do is if a child needs out-of-home placement, we're first and foremost always supposed to look at relatives, if relatives are appropriate. If that's not appropriate, we look at the least restrictive environment. So it'd be family foster home in our community, what we call a therapeutic foster home, which are licensed by Lutheran Social Services. If they need more group home or residential, like the facility we toured that one day, then that's approved as well. So once our facility is open, we're definitely going to be looking at where are our kids placed, how long have they been there, how are they doing, and if it makes sense that we could serve them equally or better here, we would want to do that. But it depends. We don't want to disrupt a placement that's maybe going well and they're making progress and maybe there's a plan for discharge. So we want to be careful not to move kids too many times either. So we're going to start, that's why we're looking at these placements even now. So even if we can serve them here, we're going to try to do that versus placing them out of our county. So. In almost 95% of our placement cases, the court is involved. So the court gets involved when we make recommendations for placement moves and that kind of thing as well. So it's not just up to our agency what we want to do. We have to speak to the court and attorneys and families, of course. So,
Thank you.
but that would be our goal.
Questions? Thank you, Rhonda.
Okay, thank you.
Our next item is a budget review for public health. Kathy McKay, and Mary's here as well. Good morning. Good morning.
I got a question for you.
Yes.
Did you get this audit report from the state minute from Rebecca Otta? Saying that we got a
That was from our CHP, right? Our CHP.
partnership for health or whatever.
Yeah. Yes, yes.
You got that report from Rebecca Otta saying that we got a,
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. So that's it. That's.
so if they
official
needed,
report.
if they needed it, you can forward that to them instead of me forwarding it.
Yeah, it's official now, since we
Okay.
got that
Frank,
report.
do you have
so.
an extra one of these for Brad? No.
Yes, I do.
All right.
And Madam Chair, for the board, the last page of your packet has a fold-out for
Thank you.
Kathy's information.
I'm going to let Mary start. This will be Mary's last budget presentation. So, Mary, you're going to go for it today.
Okay, so everyone has the big spreadsheet. The one thing to note is the copy that you have is going to be just a little bit different than ours because the detox figures were changed after the budget was originally sent out. So what we're going to do is just look at each program area to see what things have been affected and what affects our budget. And we'll just start up at the top under administration. We're showing a decrease in the overall needs for the county. We've got a decrease in travel costs and a decrease in our workers' comp amounts that we're budgeting for 2019. Then we move down to the infectious disease area where we include our immunizations, our flu, and our DPNC, which is our disease prevention and control. we show that we have got increased medical consultant fees, and we're seeing that with the new medical consultant that we have, our fees will increase significantly for 2019. So that's going to impact our budget in quite a few areas, especially in the immunization area. We've got, they're showing a decrease in our travel costs, and then we're also seeing a decrease in the revenue that we're receiving for the immunizations and the flu shots that we are giving. The next area is our disaster preparedness area. We've got an increase in the travel and supply, increase in travel costs for that, and then we've got a decrease in some of the grant funding in that area. This area also includes our Barnesville ambulance request, and that will, the request I know has been submitted, and I don't know if it hasn't been approved at this point, but there's an increase in our Barnesville ambulance funding, so that will go up for 2019.
And that comes to this group, and it's just reflected in our budget.
And then we get down to the next area for the healthy communities, and we're showing an increase in some of our grant revenues for 2019. We've added some new grants which will help cover some of our training and travel expenses. And then we're also seeing a decrease in the insurance revenues that we are receiving. The health plans have just not reimbursing like they used to. And then we have our school program. We've increased our agency rate, which has increased the contract fees, which increases our revenue, and that for probably the first time in a long time is funding our school health nursing program, so we're not running in a deficit for a change. And our adult health program, we've got increased staffing due to the increased caseload, so we've added staff in 2018, which has increased our costs for 2019. But we've also increased our plan revenue, so as we increase the staff, it increases our caseloads, which ultimately increases our revenue. Now, I did skip over the environmental health piece. Some of this is new for us this year. We've always had the food pool and lodging programs, which has been, for our department, it's always been kind of a wash area. It's been funded through the planning and zoning department. So now we've added in the on-site sewage treatment and the demolition landfill into our budget, which is reflective in our final request, because those dollars are moving from the out of the program to public health now. And there we're just seeing we've just kind of shifted things around, and since this is the first year that we're working with this, I tried to follow what the budget had been in previous years to just estimate where we're going to be at for 2019. And since it's county dollars that fund some of that, that's going to be reflected in the changes in our budget then also.
Mary, last one, you don't have a question for me?
Come on, throw something at her.
Any other questions?
I'm sure if we can maybe comment on Mary, she's been doing these budgets for a long time, and you're to the end, and I, for one, have always appreciated how thorough you've been and how precise you've been on your numbers, and that we all very much appreciate that. And I want to thank you for all you've done.
Thank you very much.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
number 7, I know that Steve Beetlesbacher won't be able to be here till 9:25. So do you want to?
Can we take a minute?
Yep. Let's take a quick 5-minute recess, please. I'll let you follow up with what you've determined with the city, what you are comfortable with going forward today.
Sure. Our assistant county attorney and I sat down and went through all the documents. There's the 2 quitclaim deeds. One quitclaiming the county of some parcels, and then the other one, the county is quitclaiming it back to the city. And those 2 documents we had no issues with. The permanent easement for the levee and the permanent easement for the water line irrigation, there was some legal wording, wordsmithing that was needed to be done. We sent it back to the city of Moorhead, and it's still in their hands. So at this time, I guess I would like to recommend approval of the quitclaim deed between Clay County and the city of Moorhead, and it would be for lots 9 through 12 in Block C and the east 165 feet of blocks 1, 2, and 3.
So you're looking for the approval on the 3 and 4, correct? The quitclaim?
It'd be, well, I think it'd be 1 and 2. Is it?
Oh,
You mean-
sorry, my page numbers.
Okay.
And you said the county attorney's office looked
We have a
at,
different one.
Okay, you have a different numbering.
the county attorney's office reviewed that and that.
Yep, correct.
So we're doing the quitclaims and not the easements?
Correct, yep.
Correct, okay.
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve
Second.
by Commissioner Gross, a second by Commissioner Haney. Thank you for taking the extra time to
Oh, you bet.
to have everyone
Sure.
review that. I appreciate that. And then just bring the easement back when Moorhead's ready.
Okay.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you. All right, well, the 5 of us have done our committee reports. Steve?
Thank you, Madam Chair. On the 7th, I also participated in the highway tracking. Commissioner Gross covered that very well, so I don't think I have anything new to add. On the 7th, I also met with Darren on a personnel matter. We also had a late jail construction meeting on the 7th. I participated in the Metro Flood Diversion Authority meeting on the 8th. We had another jail meeting, construction meeting on the 9th. I met on the 10th with Julie Savat and James O'Donnell in regards to the upcoming changes to the meals for the jail, the juvenile center, and detox. On the 10th, I also toured the jail with Ben Madsen from Construction Engineers. And on the 13th, we participated in a planning and zoning discussion, a group of us, and also participated in a meeting with Mike Ringel, and he provided an update on pending legal matters here at the county. And we also had multiple meetings this week with with Lori going through the budgets. That concludes my meetings.
All right, anything else? No, it is primary election day, so make sure and get out and vote. All right, we are adjourned.